It's going to change something inside you, inside your soul that you can never forget. No matter how much clean water you drink, after that, you're not going to forget these moments, Ishfaq. There are 5 situations, Ishfaq, that I can't get out of my head. And the fact that you actually have to walk like that while other bodies of other human beings are around you, and the smell of the bodies, Ishfaq.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. Hello and welcome to another episode of Unapologetic. Today joining me is Youmna El Sayed. Youmna is a journalist at Al Jazeera. She was in Gaza on October 7th and was there covering the war for the first 2.5 months. Her coverage is exceptionally unapologetic. Youmna, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ishfaq, for having me.
Youmna, it's really appreciated that you've given us your time. Today, it's going to be probably a long and potentially a very difficult conversation. So we really appreciate that. We will be going through what it was like covering the war and what that felt like, both as a journalist, as a mom, as a wife, as a person, as someone who's called Gaza home for a long time. And then we'll speak a bit more about your life, your past, and potentially rebuilding a future. Just to start off right from the start, where were you and what can you remember about when you first heard that Hamas gunmen and other Palestinian fighters had breached the walls of Gaza and were conducting an operation in Israel?
A very unforgettable day. How it actually started was very scary, but like from the very first beginning, that moment when I woke up on the sound of rockets like just flying over my head, I thought like, am I like dreaming? Is this like a nightmare? Like, what's happening? The sound was very loud. The rockets were like from like everywhere. Like I just like I didn't even know like which direction they were coming out from. They were literally from everywhere. All you could see is like white smoke. I ran quickly. I got up quickly. I ran quickly to check on my kids. They were asleep. And then I went to look from the window and my balcony. And then I just saw like the white smoke just covering the sky like that. And rockets are still being fired. I went quickly to the sitting room. My husband was there in front of the TV. And he was like, I don't understand. Is this like a technical problem? Did Israel like assassinate a leader or a senior leader from Hamas? And this is happening? Like we couldn't understand at that moment what was happening for that like that huge barrage or these huge barrages of rockets to be fired like that. No one understood what was going on, but people were like on messages on WhatsApp and everyone's asking everyone, like, what's happening? What's going on? It just hit me. This is going to be huge this time. Quickly, I just got up. I quickly got dressed. I quickly packed a bag. Like I knew inside this time, it's totally different than all other times. I grabbed my gym bag and I packed some clothes in it. And I told my husband, like, please take care of the kids. Like, I had this feeling inside that this time it's going to be completely different than any other time. And I was very scared inside because, like, I knew for a long time before these events of 7 October that happened, there was a lot of ongoing tension. The general atmosphere in the Gaza Strip was boiling, right? But what happened was nothing that even like crossed our minds. I went quickly to the bureau and just my day started that way. And it was extraordinary what was happening, seeing those borders being breached like that, and the walls, and with bulldozers and dozens of people going in. That was something that was really unpredictable. Like, it was completely unpredictable, and it was completely it hadn't crossed our minds before. Like, we know how much security there is on that border fence, on that security fence. And we've seen unarmed civilians and journalists being shot directly by snipers, Israeli snipers, on the other side, just 300 meters away from that fence, from that wall that was completely breached. Like, how did things reach to that point? That is something that, until this day, we can't understand. There are a lot of question marks when it comes to how was that wall infiltrated and those borders infiltrated like that with no any security Israeli response at the time.
As the day went along, I mean, obviously, it takes a while for everyone to understand the extent of what the death toll is, the extent that Hamas were able to go and sort of kill military operatives and civilians, and make sense of all of that. How did you start accumulating the information of the extent? And as you're making sense of that information, what did you and your colleagues in the bureau think of what the response will be?
From the nature of our work and our background and living these facts in Gaza, we knew that the retaliation is going to be big. This is not going to be it's not going to be just like any other war that has happened before. But we definitely didn't expect that it would take this long and it would be this brutal, and the attack would be focused on the Palestinian civilians, right? When there is a war, there are usually a lot of Palestinian or civilian casualties, okay? We've seen that a lot. We've seen that in numerous, not just wars, but escalations on the Gaza Strip. And those who pay the heaviest price are always the civilians. Always. No question. In any escalation or war against the Gaza Strip, it's always the civilians who pay the heaviest price, whether their lives, whether by the very severe injuries, or by losing their homes and being displaced. So this is like the story of their lives every single time. This time, there were Israeli captives being brought back to the Gaza Strip. We thought that, yes, there's going to be a retaliation. It's going to be big. It's going to be against Hamas and other resistance groups in the Gaza Strip. But it's also going to be, there is cautious and there is calm, because there are Israeli captives in the territory, in this strip. So, it makes sense that Israel is going to be afraid for the lives of these Israeli captives. So we didn't think that there is going to be indiscriminate bombardment the way we've witnessed in the past 6 months.
What's your you obviously know, you're a journalist, you've covered this before, and you know that, this is going to be a busy time and a very difficult time. But did you think that you'd be leaving your home, or did you think that this is just going to be really difficult? I'm going to be in the office for the next 3 or 4 months. You are going to see deaths, obviously, you are going to see some devastation. But how did you foresee what was covering this war going to be like for the next month or two, when you go home that first day and you're speaking to your husband and trying to get your family ready for what's about to happen?
Well, first of all, I thought that the area where I lived in Gaza City was a very safe area. Back in the 2021 war, the building that was just opposite to the building where our apartment was, our previous apartment, got completely bombarded and leveled. There were actually 2 buildings, and the bombardment was massive. It was huge, and it caused a lot of damage in our building, in our apartments. And I decided that I'm completely getting out of that area, and we're looking for the safest place in Gaza City. There is no safe place in Gaza, but there are places that are more safe than other places. This building, our new building, was next to the a building housing all the UN foreign staff in Gaza City. It was called the French neighborhood. Okay, it was right there in an area of Tel El Hawa, the larger area. And I thought, like, for some time, or at the beginning, that no, it's going to be safe there. Okay, the coordinates of all the buildings in that area are completely identified for the Israeli army and the Israeli army there. So there is nothing there. There are no military camps. There are no training camps. There is nothing affiliated to Hamas in that area. And so we thought that, okay, it's going to be a very relatively, at least, safe area from bombardment. But right, like, next day, I'm talking about day 2, that area, like at the beginning of the street, there is the telecommunications company. That company was bombarded. It was struck heavily. The other side of the street, where there is Al Katiba Mosque and the Katiba Square, where all ceremonies are like usually conducted in Gaza, because it's the largest square, was heavily bombarded and struck. And it just, from like, I'm talking about this, the next day, I wasn't able to go home from, like, to see my children or see my husband. I was not allowed to go into that area because it was under heavy bombardment. And they were there alone, the entire building, and with all the neighbors. And I wasn't even able to reach my kids to be with them. So from day 2, I started realizing how horrible the situation is getting. It was the retaliation, the response, the airstrikes were like completely unpredictable, and very rapidly on all areas. It wasn't like you're even given a chance to actually realize what's going on or what's happening. It was like the fear hit you from day 1. You know, being kept out. I wasn't allowed to go home. I wasn't able to get even close to the neighborhood. And I was just right there watching, like, the bombardments, the sky, in a hotel just 2 streets away from my home.
How did you eventually get home? And what also is the discussion you're having in the office with your colleagues about where you're going to have to be? Is the bureau still going to be functional? So how do you eventually get home? And like, is it immediately on day 3 or on day 2 where you start speaking about, let's move somewhere else? Or what is your thinking? Or is it just, we actually don't know what to do? We just have to wait and see.
Now, usually there was a hotel on the coast of Gaza. It was called the Roots Hotel. Now, this place is also one of these places that we called safe, right? That even in the 2021 war, when Al Jazeera Bureau was bombarded, we operated all the rest of the days of the war from that hotel. You see? And so many other media outlets were operating from that hotel. Because again, Israel knows the coordinates of that hotel. It's taken its security check, and it is always known as a safe place, right? That day, that night, when I was sheltering in the hotel because I couldn't go home on day 2 of the bombardment, right? The next morning, Ashfaq, I went home after covering all morning, okay? Once I heard that the bombardments in that area where my home was had calmed down, and I was able to go and see my family and check on them, I went there to check on them, and I got a call from my producer just half an hour, just half an hour later, right? I swear, less than half an hour. And he said, Yumna, don't come back to the Roots Hotel. They're bombing it. That was on day 3. You see, it was like, I was like, what? I told him, are you kidding me? Like, I left all my stuff there,
And the Roots
including my
Hotel
bed.
is where the bureau was kind of housed for that period of time.
Yeah, we were like, it's like, it wasn't like there, but we had a room to operate from there, right? Like we had to be in so many areas, in so many places, and we had to have our backup plans, right? In case our bureau got bombarded like last year, like on 2021. So in just like a matter of like less than 30 minutes, I got the call telling me that the Ritz Hotel is going to be bombarded. Don't come back. So the night before, I was worried about my family, who their entire area was under heavy bombardment that I was reporting about. And then the next day, when I get to see them, and I just leave my stuff at the hotel, I get back, I get a call saying that the hotel is going to be bombarded. Like that's like you get to the point, and that's just on day 3, right? You get to the point where you feel like, what is happening? Like I need some time to comprehend what's going on, and you don't even have that time. You don't have that privilege to actually understand or comprehend what's going on. It was like everything so fast, so quick, so unexpected, and it was all terrifying.
You have 4 children, Yumna, and they have lived through 2021 and other wars that have occurred since you've been in Gaza. When you got home on day 3 and you saw them, and also I'm guessing you also spoke to them on the phone on day 2, how was their response to what was going on? And was this visibly different? I mean, obviously, like it's difficult at that moment to comprehend. All bombardments, I'm sure, are absolutely horrific and terrifying. But how was their response? And that's the first thing. And then secondly, how long does it eventually take you to say, we need to actually move and go somewhere else?
Well, first of all, when I got like on day 2, when I was trying to call them, because the telecommunications company was the one that was bombarded, the signals were completely lost. So it was very difficult to reach them, right? I wasn't able to reach them in any way. I eventually got like a very short, broken phone call from my husband saying that we're okay, we're at the basement, don't come home, it's too dangerous. And that was it, right? And when I got to see
And so
them,
all the residents of the building were in the basement.
yes, everyone was in the basement. The bombardments were very heavy, they were very tense, and they were very close to the building. Now, when I got to see them, like, you know, that the moment, like when, like my kids were very terrified, Ishbaq. I remember, I swear, my 5-year-old, she hugged me so hard, and like she was like, my husband told me, like, she didn't sleep all night. She didn't sleep all night. She was afraid and she wanted you, so she didn't fall asleep all night. I swear, in like less than like 15 minutes, she fell asleep in my arms. Like she didn't leave me, and she stayed like hugging me like that. I was just sitting around them. I was like, they were like, Mom, it was very scary, and it was very loud, and it was very tense. And I was like, what happens now? I was telling my husband, like, aren't we supposed to be in a safe area, in a safe place? Like, what happens now? Where do we go now? If the bombardments have reached here, then where else do we go? Again, we're talking about the Gaza Strip. We're talking about a very small, tiny territory, right? And it's not just easy to find some other place where you can move in such a time, in such a critical time, just like that. So, and then I got that call from the hotel saying, or from my producer telling me that the hotel is going to be bombarded. Unfortunately, I couldn't spend more than half an hour with them,
With your family, you couldn't spend, you had to go back.
and I had to go back.
And where did you go? Because you couldn't go to the hotel. So where are you now going to work? And was there even a chance to plan? Was the plan you guys stay here and be safe, and I'm going to go back to work and see what we can do?
it wasn't really a plan as much as it was just the only
The option.
option, the only option that we had. It's like you don't even have options to choose from when you're a resident of Gaza. Honestly, this is what I've learned. Like, you don't have the privilege of having more than one option. You just go and live and cope with whatever is imposed on you. And I just had to go. I had to go back to work, and I had to leave them hoping and praying that they're going to be okay. And I went back to the bureau. We were still in our bureau at that time. And I went back to report. I had usually my reporting was like a full day of lives, and then I would do a story if I had time between lives to gather whatever I needed from interviews or pictures or whatever. And then it wasn't easy. It was very, and the fact that it was very dangerous, and the fact that we were afraid to move, because from the first sense that we got that the bombardments are just like everywhere, on anyone, on anything. You remember when I was on the rooftop on the second day?
Yes.
Second day, and that huge tower, Palestine Tower, that tower is one of the oldest and largest towers in Gaza City. And we usually get the evacuation calls or threats sometimes, right? But that tower was warned to evacuate, of course, was warned by that missile. Like, they didn't get a prior call telling them to evacuate. So they were warned by that warning missile. And that warning missile wasn't just something like, imagine just being peacefully at home and then a missile like that hits your apartment or your building or your tower. What's that sense of fear or terror that you're going to be in? What are you even going to gather? You're not even going to be able, even if you have some time, you're not going to be able to take anything other than your kids and run, right? For your life. So from the nature of how the bombardments were conducted and where we were on the highest point of alert that the worst is happening, and we just need to be prepared for it.
Yumna, when eventually does your family move for the first time, and where do they move to? And by then, where are you in the state of trying to understand the horror and the conflict that you're covering and that you're witnessing?
Well, another horrible moment. So just like one night, very heavy bombardments, like usually all the bombardments of the day are in one hand, and then the bombardments of the night on a whole different level. Like, they intensify the bombardments at night. People can't sleep. People are constantly afraid and terrified, and there are no warning calls at all when there are bombardments at the night. And it's horrible, and we're just awake like that. We can't sleep because of all the bombardments, and our building is shaking like that. And at that time when I started, it was just 2-3 days after I actually started returning back home to sleep at home with my family. And it was, I think, on the third night after that. It was very close from the beginning of the war. And suddenly we started hearing news that there are messages sent by the Israeli army to UN staff in Gaza, asking them to evacuate Gaza City instantly once, from 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. in the morning until 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
So this will be a
in the
safe
morning.
7 a.m. to 2 p.m. will be safe, and that's when you must leave.
Yes. So that was the first time this whole thing started, right? messages to UN staff sent by the Israeli army. Of course, when the news started circulating, like the natural thing for like normal residents, they would call you as a journalist. They call the journalists, right? Everyone wants to know from you the fact. Is this a fact, or is this just a lie or a rumor? What's going on? And I had to like make a lot of calls. I had to like check with everyone. Everyone was like really on a mission to verify that news. And once I verified the news and I knew that, okay, yeah, it's true. And I was quickly trying to understand what to expect from that move. Are they going to be like separating the north in Gaza City from the rest of the Gaza Strip? Is there going to be a siege on the north in Gaza City? Is this like, are they going to just conduct a military operation and then we're going to return back home? Are we like, for how long? Too many questions. And then my actual struggle at that time, like having to like, you know, work all day long, a very exhausting day, and then not sleeping all night because of the bombardments and how much your kids are terrified. And then this news happens. I was just like thinking to myself, okay, so now I need to leave with my family. I need to take my kids and move out quickly in just a couple of hours. What am I going to take with me? Where are we going to go? You're asked to evacuate the entire city, not to evacuate your home. You're going to evacuate the entire city. How long are you going to do that? You know, just like now, you have a couple of hours to leave your city, not your home, right? What are you going to take with you? Where are you going to go?
Where
like,
did you go?
Is it that easy to just find a place to go to? Like, what's going to happen? Like, where are you going to go? Where are you going to stay? Like, so many people from Gaza, they don't have places in Khan Younis or Rafah or in Deir al-Balah. They don't have places there. They're not lucky enough to have, for example, relatives from these areas, right? They're all just from Gaza City. Now, I remember that I sat like that on the bed. I was just looking around. God, what can I carry? And how much is your car going to carry suitcases? And how much time do you have to prepare? And what are you going to prepare? And should I be taking food or not? Because already by that time, less than a week into the war, there was already a complete blockade on Gaza. There was no water, there was no electricity. Like from the second day, water and electricity were cut off the Gaza Strip. Okay, how long is this going to take? Of course, the borders are going to be shut. Nothing is going to enter. So many questions, so many emotions, but like the most controlling emotion, honestly, was the fear, because you didn't know what to expect. You know, the fear of what's not expected, what's going to happen. We gathered what we could. I got what I could. We were in the summer. I tried to get as much summer clothes as I could in just one suitcase for the 6 of us. I got like the largest suitcase. I gathered some food, whatever we had supplies, I took with me. Whatever we had water, I took with me. But then it was like, there's no enough space to carry like more than that. This is all I can carry. And lucky enough, my husband's mother had an apartment in Khan Younis, and she's not in Gaza. So her apartment was closed. And we were lucky that we had a place. But like, for example, other neighbors with us in the same building who are our friends as well, they didn't have anywhere to go. There were two families and they didn't have anywhere to go. And we took them with us. So we went, all three of us, three families, to that small apartment together. But at least, right, we had a place that we can take refuge in at that time.
And then when you rebase to Khan Younis, how then does that impact two things? Obviously, your family life, and is it still ongoing bombardment? Do you feel, I wouldn't use the word safe, but you feel some sort of relief that the bombardment here isn't as heavy as it was in Gaza City? And how did it impact your still going and covering the war? And at this point now, you're starting to see hospitals filling up. You're starting to see more rescue operations occur. You're also starting to see hospitals being bombed. Everything's just kind of escalating simultaneously. So when you rebase to Khan Younis, how is both your professional life, to use that word, I don't even think it's even appropriate at this stage, but sort of your professional day or night, and how is it still interacting with your family? And how does your family feel when you're going to work and you are leaving them behind?
First of all, when I evacuated to Khan Younis the first time, Ishfaq, we spent only a week there. Only 1 week. Why? Because the bombardments were as heavy as they were in Gaza. Literally as heavy as they were in Gaza. We did not feel safe at all.
So you also hunkered in the basement? Was your family also hunkered in? Did the building have a basement?
There was no basement in that building. There was no basement. And we didn't feel any safety. But on top of that, there was no water at all. At all. Like it was almost impossible to find water. It was like a horrible struggle every single day to find water. And my problem wasn't just in the normal water that we used for washing and bathing and everything. I mean, bathing was actually obviously a dream, yani. It was something that happened like in a very long time. But the drinking water, Ashfaq, that was my real struggle with my kids.
How did you find drinking water? How did you survive?
You had to actually go, like, for example, you would go and start asking people where you can find a place to refill from, right? And then when you find that place, the water quickly runs out. The problem is that a lot of people are now just using these supplies. Okay, so to drink that water. So in these, for example, some mosques had wells in them. Okay, and like we usually never drank the water, but then it's your only option. Okay, like it's not 100% filtered water that could be safe for drinking, but at that time it was the water that I provided for my kids to drink, and I was grateful to find that water. Okay, we waited for whatever humanitarian aid that would enter every now and then just to buy or get drinking water. We went to UNRWA centers, distribution centers in Khan Younis and Rafah to be able to get water.
So when you say we, your husband would go get the water, your whole family, you yourself, like somehow in your working day? Like
whenever I had a chance, for example, between lives, I would try to go. Okay. Whenever my husband was able to leave my children with someone of the families that we were with, or like anyone there, he would go. It wasn't easy because we don't have relatives in Gaza. Like I don't have an extended family in Gaza. I don't have parents or siblings in Gaza, and neither does my husband, right? So it was just me, him, and our 4 kids.
And were your neighbors still living with you at this point? The ones who had traveled with you from Gaza City to Khan Younis?
Yes. they were still with us. And maybe that was like the only kind of relief that I had. Okay, because I knew like everyone was with their families, right? Like, I mean, this family that was the two families, it was like one of them who was our friend and his wife and children, and the other family was his mom, dad, and siblings, unmarried siblings, right? So usually families in Gaza, they stick together. They live together in the same building, and that's why they moved with us as well. But like when you don't have anyone to help you out, the struggle is like unbelievable. And you can't leave your kids. Like, you can't leave your kids. You're not in a state where you can actually leave them safely at home. You're actually going out and you're thinking, am I going to make it back home or not? Or am I going to make it back home and find them alive or not? It was that bad in a very short time. And like, as a parent, I'm going out, I'm working, and I know that my kids at home, they can't find bread, they don't have enough water to drink. Like these emotions are like, they kill you inside as a parent. They kill you inside literally as a parent. Like, I remember, not in this time, but like when we re-evacuated again to Khan Younis, I swear to God, Ishfaq, twice this happened. This small bottle of water, like something like this, okay? At one time, we had just one of it, just one bottle of water left, right? For the six of us, to tell your 5-year-old to just take one sip every hour is unbearable. To deprive yourself of the least right to drink water because you can't find more water to bring to them, and you want to leave this little amount of water for them, okay? It's unbearable. You're just talking about water. Having to drink salty water, which you use to wash your hands because you can't find clean water and you don't want your kids to drink from that water. It's just like, it's going to change something inside you, inside your soul, that you can never forget. No matter how much clean water you drink, after that, you're not going to forget these moments, Ishfa. You're not going to forget that when you traveled and you made it to safety, your kids were still under the feeling, okay, of, is it okay to drink as much as we can or as much as we want or not? They would ask you, is it okay? Can I like drink more? We're not, like, no matter how much you live after that, no matter how much you're not going to forget the impact of these moments and these details and how much they have changed and scarred in your soul.
Yumna, speaking about the things you were covering at that point, obviously what's happening to your family is exceptionally devastating, and we're going to return to that. And it's my understanding that after a while you move from Khan Younis back to Gaza City. But before we get there, at this point, are there things that you're seeing, that you're covering, which you just have never, ever seen before? And how is it impacting you and your colleagues, medical staff, people who are you interacting with, interviewing? Just walk us through some of that.
I've seen a lot of things, and I've lived a lot of things. Me, my team, everyone, every single journalist who is covering this war has seen things that most probably they can't even talk about with other people. And when you're seeing it like while you're there, it's completely different than when you see it on a screen. It's completely different, Ishfaq. Like for me, Yumna, there are situations that have happened with me, like so many situations, but there are 5 situations, Ishfaq, that I can't get out of my head. 5 pictures that I can't sleep until now. I've been out. It's been almost 3 months now, and I still can't sleep. Like I suffer severe insomnia since I've left until now. Because every single time I close my eyes, I see these pictures, I see these scenes, I hear these voices, I hear those screams. Like for example, like the one that I was telling one of the journalists about. This was like the first time I spoke about this story, when I was like finally able to actually let it out, right? And I'm not gonna lie to you, like when that happened, I couldn't even speak to my family about. I couldn't speak to my husband even about, because I wasn't even able to bear the how much it hurt me. And I felt like no human being can bear that. Like one day we were covering at Nasser Hospital. It's when I was in Khan Younis, it was the place where we went to cover from, or to broadcast from, for our lives and our live coverage from there. And between lives, usually there's sometimes you have time, like to, it's either you're working on something or you're inspecting what's happening, trying to gather some more information and so on. But that day, that particular day, I had finished my shift and I was actually working on a story. And it was like really late in Khan Younis, in Nasser Hospital. And then this airstrike happens in Khan Younis, and the ambulances just come quickly in. And the first thing I do, even if I don't have like a live now or anything, like we quickly run to the ambulances, to the entrance of the hospital, to check what's going on, what happened, who are the casualties, what was hit, and so on. So like my usual routine, right? And then that day I was like standing there. There was like a lot of chaos, a lot of people coming in and standing by the entrance of the hospital, and ambulances just squirting more and more injuries. And like most of them, as usual, were children. That's like the worst part. It's the most devastating part. When every time an ambulance stops, or a car, just like usually even civilians who have cars, they help in bringing the injuries and everything. That day the ambulance stopped, and not from the back door of the ambulance, but from the side door of the ambulance. This little boy, he comes out of the ambulance, Ishfaq. Okay, and he's carrying a blue backpack right here, hanging it on his chest. And he's not even crying. He's not even crying. He just has a lot of bruises on his face, and it seemed like he came from under the rubble or something. He had a lot of dust on his hair and his face. And he's so calm. I was like, he saw how much I was like feeling bad about all the scenes that I'm seeing and the injuries that are coming out and everything. And I was like, I was feeling very sorry, and I was just like, and he just comes to me like that, and he, swear to God, he pulls me like this from my hand. He tells me, you know what I have here? And like, I just like, I, I looked at him like that. I looked at his face, and I looked at his bag. And just before saying anything, I found that it was dripping blood. So I was afraid, and like he wanted to open the backpack, and I did this like I couldn't speak. I did this. I put my hand like this. I didn't want him to open the backpack. And then I asked him, told him, Ishmael, what do you have here? He told me in Arabic, أخوي الصغير أحمد, my little brother Ahmed. You know, I felt like, I swear, like he's like as old as my own child, Muhammad, or as old as Aline. And this is the problem. You, as a parent, you always see your children in these children. You always feel that this could have been your child. This person could have been your child. And he was the thing that really killed me, Ishfaq, is that he wasn't crying. He wasn't crying at all. And I felt like, Ya Allah, oh my God, this person, this child, is he ever going to be okay again? Is he actually going to be well again? Like I can't imagine until now. I don't even know if this child is alive or not. Can you imagine the trauma? Can you imagine what this boy has lived? I pulled the doctor, like running, like paramedics and so on. I just pulled him like that, and I pointed at him. I told him, please help him. You need to help him. He looked at the bag. He saw the blood. I quickly, like in a very like in a sense of like a moment, he opened the bag. He was like, Ya Allah. And I just, خلاص, for me, I felt like, خلاص, I can't say anything. I can't move from my place. I felt like, حتى والله, I wasn't able to breathe at that moment. I felt like I wanted the entire world to stop. I felt like I can't even process what is going on, what is seen, what I've just seen, and all that. And I haven't looked. I haven't had the courage to look in that backpack. I wasn't able to look in that backpack. I didn't have the courage to do that. I just looked at it from outside. I just saw the blood from outside. And that was it for me. Like that was it. This is one of the situations that I just keep on thinking to myself, like, did this boy survive? I could even ask him what his name was. I could even ask him what his name was. I don't even know what happened to him. I know that the doctor, he took him to the morgue instead of inside the hospital. He took him to the morgue. And I didn't even have the courage to return the next day and to ask about this boy. I knew deep inside that he's not okay, and he's not going to be okay. And I'm not even okay to help him out. And this is just like, this is one situation for one child, okay, that has been through this. But I swear there are tens of thousands of children in Gaza who have lived similar traumas, either by losing all their parents, all their families, and being the only survivor, or by seeing their parents being killed in front of their eyes, witnessing the killing of their parents, just like that, or by having to carry their own brothers and sisters who have been killed. And after all that, at the end, yes, you're a reporter. You just need to get yourself together and go back and start reporting.
How did you manage to do that? How did you actually manage to do that?
I didn't. I went home. I'm not gonna lie. I went home. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything. I just wanted to go home. And I went home. And even when I went home, I wasn't able to speak to anyone about it.
Home then was still Khan Younis, or you back in Gaza City? Khan
No,
Younis.
we had already moved to Khan Younis.
Okay. So
It
this was
was
very early on in the war. This was still in the first 2 weeks.
It was the second time we evacuated. This was in the second time we evacuated.
Okay, so this is near the last part of when you are in Gaza.
Yes, before we went to Rafah again. So it was Khan Younis, and then we went back to Gaza, and then we went back to Khan Younis. This was at the second time when we went back.
So by now your family is already exhausted, and at this point, how is your children and your husband doing? And are you still with your neighbors? Are you still with your family? And I mean, before we even go there, when you went back to Gaza City, why did you leave the second time?
because when we went back to Gaza City, we went back because of the shortage of water, honestly. It was the main problem. And because the bombardments in Khan Younis were as heavy as they were in Gaza. And I felt like at least we have a basement there. We can shelter in. We had a water well in the building, so there was water. And I had a filter at home. There was drinking water, right? I even remember that we were like the only apartment in our building who had an electrical filter. So everyone used to fill their bottles from our home because like there is water like from the well, but it's just for washing. Okay. So that was the main reason. I had some more like comfortable, necessities of life at home. I had a solar system, for example, in my home. So there was a little bit of electricity and that you can charge your phones, that you can, there was no internet, of course, because it was completely cut off in different areas, and our area, one of them. But at least there were other things that I can actually make use of in these difficult times. And really, there was no, like having to stay in just one room, all the six of us together, and no any kind of there was no rest, there was no privacy, there was no nothing. And I felt like my kids were getting really depressed and devastated day after day. And I wasn't able to be there for them. I wasn't able to comfort them. I wasn't able to even provide for them the basic necessities of like food and water. So we took the decision to go back home, us and the two families who were staying with us. And then other neighbors as well, they returned home in the building. So we ended up about 6 families who returned home back.
Were you hopeful that you would actually be able to stay there? I mean, for some sort of period of time, or did you think, oh, we're probably going to be again just for a short while and then be evacuated again?
No, we thought like it's probably not going to take longer than that. I mean, it had been like a month already. It's probably not going to take longer than that. And they have done whatever they wanted in Gaza City. I mean, it was badly bombarded and everything. So I don't think that there's anything left. especially in the area where we lived.
When you get back, how devastated is the neighborhood around you compared to when you leave?
Completely destroyed. I mean, like Tell El Hawa neighborhood was one of the nicest and most beautiful neighborhoods in Gaza. It was very clean. It had very nice shops, and it had very nice streets, and a lot of trees and along the streets and everything. And the buildings themselves were very nice. It was a very nice neighborhood. And the neighborhood where, like the particular area where we lived was a very nice one. It's, once you just enter, like just walking in the streets, like starting from Gaza, from entering Gaza city, that sign that says "Welcome to Gaza," like once you enter, you just see the rubble, debris everywhere, glasses shattered on the streets everywhere, trees completely just like burned, buildings just like on fire, burnt like black, and a lot of destruction, a lot of stones and rocks everywhere from the destruction. It was even hard to just drive in the streets. You had to take like different routes to get to that area, like longer routes where it's less destroyed. Some streets where like they had very huge holes from the missiles. It was completely different.
And so I'm guessing it's not just you and the 6 families who've moved back. I'm guessing there's a lot of people in Gaza from your community around you at the time who are hopeful that there's probably an end of sight. I mean, this is now, we're probably talking about the first or second week of November, I'm guessing. Was that the sentiment? Was there a sentiment of we hope that this will soon be able to end and we can start rebuilding our lives? Or was there already some sort of submission to this is just going to go on and we don't know what the outcome is going to be like? What was the emotions and the feelings like among the people at the time?
Everyone was saying that this is probably coming to an end soon, very soon. I mean, there's probably going to be an agreement for a hostages swap and a hostages deal, prisoners deal, and things are going to get better, and it's going to end. Like there's nothing left. Like we're talking about November, mid-November. People were already saying there's nothing left. The destruction is massive. The bombardments are like indiscriminate everywhere. The number of people who have been killed was already on the rise every single day. So nobody thought that it would actually take more than that. Like when 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, by the time about 5,000 were already killed, nobody imagined that this would actually go on to much more than that, or like they would actually reach higher than that. I mean, we're talking about thousands already killed and tens or thousands more injured. Like nobody imagined that. Like for example, a Shifa hospital. Nobody imagined that Israel was going to be able, the world was going to be too silent about what's happening in a Shifa hospital. I mean, at the end, you're targeting a hospital.
I'm guessing you're not meaning this last time. I'm guessing you're meaning the first time.
The first time. The first time when there were when there was even a lot of threats and a lot of bombardment around the vicinity of Al Quds hospital in Tel El Hawa, the Red Crescent hospital. No one was like, everyone was saying there is no way that they would enter the hospital. And if they enter the hospital, there is no way that they're going to evacuate the patients and force them to evacuate while they're patients on patient beds. There's no way that they're going to harm the doctors. Like these things were like, everyone was saying that no, it can't get to like, no matter how much bad it gets, it won't get this worse, right? It won't get to that extent. I mean, there is an international law. There are conventions. There is an international community witnessing everything that's happening. They can't let this happen. I used to hear that from normal civilians everywhere when we talk. Like, I mean, everyone was like Of course not. I mean, yes, they're letting Israel at least do what needs to be done for it to calm down, but it would never get to that extent. This is what everyone was saying, like in a very simple, brief way, you know,
I mean,
spoken.
it's one of the questions I wanted to ask you because you see, when you're outside looking in, those moments where Biden repeats the lies of Netanyahu about beheaded babies, or when you see international failure and you see Israel committing atrocities and more arms are being sent, or there's not enough condemnation or no condemnation, or people are still talking about Israel self-defense. Obviously, in Gaza, it's much more frantic, and people are trying to find water and protect their children and move to homes that they don't have. So, I mean, I'm guessing initially it's all just panic, but at what point do the people start? What is their sense of what's being said about it, as opposed to the urgency and desperation of what they need to do just to survive? Does it actually, is there a great sense of anger that Biden has repeated Netanyahu's lies, or is it just that what better did you expect? Or do people not even really care because they're so consumed with doing what they need to do to even survive?
Well, at the beginning, people honestly had hope that like things wouldn't be, or the situation or the lies of Netanyahu being repeated by, for example, the Biden administration, and this is self-defense. People had hope that, oh, these governments, this international community, these other countries supporting Israel in its war or genocide against Gaza are going to be seeing what is happening. Like they would be like, if you speak to any Gazan, he would tell you like don't you see the pictures? Don't you see the videos? Like, you know, that feeling that a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Don't you see for your own eyes what is actually happening? So they don't expect you to actually believe someone else telling you any kind of lies when you can see the reality for your own eyes. And this is the basic reason of disappointment towards the international community. Why people in Gaza are disappointed in the international community, in Western governments, because they have chosen to believe those allegations and claims and lies over the reality that they have seen with their own eyes in the past 6 months. And now people are 100% sure that all these governments claiming humanitarian rights, human rights, democracy, international law have nothing. They have nothing to do with all these claims. And they don't care about the Palestinian people. They don't care about the Palestinian blood. And it's not, by the way, it's not just the Western countries or the Western governments. They also know that no Arab countries or no Eastern countries or governments are even doing anything better than the Western governments. So they know that everyone has abandoned Gaza. And if you walk the street, they will tell you everyone has abandoned, the entire world has abandoned Gaza and its people.
When is the first time, and it could have been maybe even as soon as day two, but maybe it wasn't. But when's the first time in your head the word genocide sort of popped up, and you're like, even if you were just saying it to yourself, but this is a genocide. This is no longer, like in your mind, you're just thinking to yourself, this looks and must be a genocide. When did that happen?
That happened as early as probably it was the third or fourth day of the war, when there was a massacre in Jabaliyah, in the Trans neighborhood, in Jabaliyah refugee camp. Over 20 people were killed in the initial striking of that area. And that area was close or like very close to where UNRWA run schools were. Okay, and these schools had thousands, hundreds of thousands. They were 3 schools. They had literally hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who were displaced. Like every school had about like 6,000 Palestinians in them. And that at that time, I went there to go live from that area, or to actually film in that area, and to film the massacre and the destruction and everything. And I saw the destruction. It was like the homes. When we say refugee camp in Gaza, it means that homes are very adjacent to one another. There is barely any even narrow alleys between buildings and other buildings or homes. A very impoverished area, okay, and with a lot of people packed in that very small area. That's the nature of refugee camps in Gaza. And that's Jabaliyah refugee camp, which is one of the largest refugee camps in Gaza city. It was hit like really bad. A couple of homes were hit really bad, and like as they were hit, of course, the entire area was completely destroyed, completely burned, completely destroyed. In that bombardment,
this area, like, to try to give us a sense, like how many football fields, how many city blocks, how big is this area when you say it's completely leveled?
The area that was bombarded from that is like a football field.
Okay.
So I went there and with my team, and we were filming like the devastation, and people were just trying to save others from under the rubble. The ambulances were there. They weren't even able to, of course, to reach until that point, because you can only walk. It's too, like, the roads are too narrow, and the alleys are too narrow. Suddenly, when we were there, people start screaming, Ishfa. Okay, and they like, run, run, run. They're going to hit again. Okay. And I can't explain to you the amount of people who were like there at that point, trying to get out the people who were killed in the previous strikes already. There were over 20 people killed and dozens of injuries. Okay. And a lot more of people trying to help out those people who are still under the rubble from these areas. And they just start screaming, run quickly. They called and they said, so the Israeli army called someone in that area, and they said that they're going to hit the same area again. Now, it was very early in the war. It was like, I think the 4th day of the war, but we had already started getting used to the fact that Israel, 5 to 10 minutes after it targets an area or a place, it retargets it again. Right? It was just like the 4th day, and we were already getting used to that from the amount of bombardments that we had already witnessed and lived. So a state of panic and terror in that time, when he was like screaming like that. I just looked around me. I was like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And like everyone started screaming and running out, right? And suddenly I just, like, my own team, they ran. I couldn't find any of them around me, right? And I started running. With, like, I was putting on my vest and my helmet, and I started running so fast. And then I saw Hisham Zaqqout, who is Al Jazeera Arabic correspondent. And I was like, Hisham, wait for me. Hisham, what's going to happen? He's like, Yumna, run, don't look back, run. And he was running, like, he was telling me that, and he was running. And like suddenly, Hisham just disappeared in the crowds. I couldn't see him. And I started running. And I knew that, khalas, this is going to be the end. There is a lot of people I'm talking about very narrow alleys and streets, and I'm wearing a very heavy like gear on top of me. I can barely run, but I just forgot about everything and I started running. And then I realized that if I actually, if this missile falls now, I'm I'm not just going to be like killed, I'm going to disappear. And my family wouldn't know, like maybe the entire team dies, maybe everyone dies, right? And then they would even know like where to look for me, where to find me, or anything. So communications were really bad in Gaza. And I just like, I swear, I just held my phone and I called news desk. I called the news desk in Doha. My colleague, she answered me. I know her from her voice. I was like, Hayat, this is Yumna. I'm in Jabaliyah refugee camp and at the trans area. They're going to strike again now. If I die, tell my family that I died here. Tell them to look for me here. And she was like, what? Yumna, what are you doing? She was like, I told her I'm running. And we're just talking like that. And the first strike hits. And of course, like with all the pressure of the rocket, I drop my phone and I fall like a couple of meters away. I hurt my hand, I hurt my knees. And like I get up quickly. Hayat is still on the phone screaming, Yumna, are you here? Yumna, can you hear me? And I just like, I get the phone, I say, Hayat, that was the first rocket. I'm still alive. She's like, run, just run, quickly, don't look back. Keep running, keep running. And I just keep on running and running and running. And then the second rocket hits and I hear it and I know that I'm far. I know that now I'm like at least 2 streets away from that rocket that hit. And then I was like, okay, so this is the second rocket. She's like, are you far enough? I'm like, yeah, I'm far enough. I'm fine. I need to hang up. And I hang up. And that day I realized that that's it. We're not safe. This is not a war. This is genocide on innocent civilians. Like I've been in that area that was retargeted and it was just filled with civilians. So in the first time, there were just people, normal civilians who were killed in their homes. And now more people were killed who were trying to save those people from that first massacre and bombardment. And that was the moment that I just realized that that's it. This is not like any other time. This is not like any other time.
Yumna, when you eventually, we were speaking about going back to Gaza City and you needed to go there because it was a more comfortable, you again using the word very, cautiously, comfortable living arrangement. What eventually makes you leave Gaza City again? And how long are you at home again the second time? Like how long are you there for? A week, 2 weeks? Is it longer than that before you decide you need to go back to Khan Younis again?
So we went back. It was just like, okay, anyway, we're gonna die here. We're gonna die there. Let's at least spend some of our days in dignity.
So by now you had realized that dying is a very real possibility for all of you, but at least you will die being able to get some sort of water and have some of your privacy and be in your home.
Exactly. It was like
we're gonna get killed anyway. It was like, this is like the reality. Like my kids were even, they had already comprehended that reality and they were talking about it, right? They were already discussing it and they were talking about it. And it was like, let's all sleep together in one place, right? So that if like a rocket falls on us, we die, all of us together. This is like, can you imagine, like, this is the only concern? This is one of the main topics that we spoke about. that we would be sleeping together in one place, so that if a rocket falls, we just get killed, all of us together. Like, not all of us get killed and just one survives, or like some of us survive and the others get killed, or even injured, because again, the severity of the injuries is on another level. Okay, so we decided that, okay, so we're going to die of bombardments, we're not going to die of thirst. Let's go back to our home in Gaza, die there with dignity. We're going to get killed by bombardments anyway. We went back, we spent some time there, and there was like a complete siege now on Gaza City itself, right? So the Israeli troops were heading from Salahuddin Street and Rashid Street towards the Al-Quds Hospital. And like, our home is like, or our neighborhood, let me say, okay, is between Al-Quds on the right and Shifa on the left, and it just falls in between, right? So the big area is called Tel El-Hawa neighborhood, and then that small area there was called the French neighborhood. So they start coming in and they start circulating around Quds Hospital.
Now you mean the Israeli ground troops and tanks. It's not just air assaults anymore.
Exactly.
And a lot of bombardments are like taking place in that area where it's Al-Quds and Shifa. I was still able to go to Shifa and broadcast from there at the time. So when I went back to Gaza City, I used to go and broadcast from the Shifa hospital, right? And it was like they were very concentrated on Al-Quds hospital at the time. They took them hospital by hospital, one at a time. So the siege was around Al-Quds hospital, and all the bombardments and the firing and everything was around that hospital, until they succeeded in entering the hospital and bringing out all the patients and doctors and turning them or evacuating them, or telling them to evacuate through Salahuddin Street, which was already controlled by the Israeli tanks now. And then, while we were at home, we had a lot of leaflets be dropped in the neighborhood, telling us to evacuate to the south for our own safety and so on. But then one day when we were at home, my husband, he got a phone call, and it was from a private number. So it was very strange. So I had changed my SIM card, by the way, for just a couple of days ago. I changed my SIM card to another SIM card that wasn't identified, it wasn't on my name. But because, for example, that the signals, the phone signals of this company was a little bit higher than this one, so it was for better signal connection. So I changed my SIM card, my number at that time, and that's not really the problem, because at the end, the Israeli army can get to you whatever and whenever they want. Like, basically, they know all the numbers, because every single data that is in or out of the Gaza Strip is being controlled or is under surveillance. So he got a call from a private number, and he told him, "Are you Salahuddin?" And he said his full name. Identified him in his full name, and my husband replied, "Yes, I am." And he said, "This is an officer from the IDF." And he told him, "Okay." So he said, "We know who you are. Take your family and leave your home, otherwise your life will be in danger." So he told him, "Okay, so you're saying that you know who I am, and you know that the place where I live now is under heavy bombardment, and they are Israeli tanks around the area, and Salahuddin Street is blocked by an Israeli tank. How am I supposed to take my kids and my family, like you're saying, and leave? And he just told him, that's your problem to solve. We have warned you, and now it's up to you. And so my husband told him, okay, Tamam, thank you. So it's either if I go out, so he told him like that, he told him, if I go out, we're going to get killed. And if we stay home, we're going to get killed. Okay, thank you. And he just hung up. Now, Shbab, I'm telling you about it now, just like that, because now I feel safe, right? Now I'm away, I'm out of Gaza, and I feel safe. You have no idea the amount of terror that was caused from that phone call. We felt like, I felt like, first of all, I don't want to tell you like how my kids got the news, okay? And then how that news impacted my neighbors and my friends. And then how I was even afraid of speaking about it publicly, right? So we investigated this at Al Jazeera, and we investigated this like through our teams in Jerusalem, and we made a lot of calls, and we didn't just say it's a threat like out of nowhere like that, right? So we made calls, we made investigations. They even they contacted the Israeli army. Like they tried to get to the bottom of this, if it was particularly for Youmna El Sayed or just a warning message. Now, usually warning messages and warning calls in Gaza, when civilians get them, it's through a number that starts with 054, which is like the code of Isreal, or it starts with Isreal. And then it's usually a recorded message. So the recorded message says, "This is the idea for your own safety. We are ordering you to leave your your areas and head south." Right? But to get a call like that from a no number or a private number, right? And to speak, actually, to get to the point where you're actually speaking with the officer who's telling you that we know who you are. Like, we know who you are. We know, take your family, leave your home, otherwise your life is in danger. And like, it's your problem. Yes, bombardments are everywhere, and we know that. It's your problem to worry about. You know, like, there's a word that we say in Arabic, like, we've warned you and we've done our part, right? So it's up to you now. So he even said that, like he was even like telling him that we've warned you, we've done our part. He told him that, like, and then after that, we checked with the neighbors if anyone got any warning call or even warning message, you know, from these messages, the numbers that call, and like everyone was like, no, we didn't get anything. We spent most of our time together as neighbors, because it was so much more relieving, you know, at least, you know, to find someone to talk to chat with, to sometimes even, you know, just share these terrifying moments with. And then when they knew about it, like when this news came out, it came out after we made our calls. We contacted the teams in Jerusalem after they we investigated about it, and then the news was out. I got really terrified, because okay, I knew that it was a direct threat, and I knew that it meant that I am in danger, but now I'm with my family. So this means that my family will be in danger too. And that was the worst idea that could cross my mind, that I would be the reason for danger for my kids. Like my 12-year-old Eileen, when she heard the news, she started screaming at me. She told me, like, are they gonna kill us because of you? Are they gonna kill us because of you? Now they're gonna kill us because of you. They're going to bombard us. We're going to all die because of you. Like that. And like, I'm like, no, Mom, they're not gonna do that. Like, Close, come down. They're not gonna do that. Don't worry. No, they're going to do that. Look what happened to Wael's family. Look what happened to Muhammad Al-Alul's family. Look what happened to them. They killed their families. They bombarded their homes. It started like that from home. It started like that with my daughter. And then it went down to my neighbors and my friends. Like, everyone suddenly was afraid of us. Like, everyone was like, okay, so you guys are not considering moving out? They're like, move out where? Where the hell? Are you guys kidding? They're like, no, come on, don't worry. It's like you would find some people telling you, like, just come down, don't worry. Inshallah, it's going to be okay. Don't worry, they wouldn't do anything, right? I mean, they know that there are other civilians with you in the building. They know us, of course they know. And others would be like, oh, this is very dangerous. You need to find somewhere else to be in. Like, this could get the entire building to be bombarded and everyone killed. It was like a couple of days like that. I was even afraid of going out. Like, I used to go out and film and do stories from like my balcony there. I always put on my vest and my helmet. I was afraid of that. I was like literally afraid of putting on my vest and helmet anymore.
I mean, when you get the phone call, just to be clear again, when your husband gets that phone call, do you guys still spend a few more days in Gaza City, or do you immediately leave?
We spent more times. It was impossible to leave Ishfaq. It was impossible. It was like
ongoing, non-stop bombardment everywhere, very, very, very close to us, like so much around us. Like, we thought about it, like, if we just take our cars and we go out in the street, we're like instantly going to be struck. There was no question about it. I mean, we spent 9 days in Gaza City when we returned from Khan Younis. Okay, we spent like 9 days before we left again. We weren't able to go out, like, out of the building because of how tense the bombardments were.
How do you eventually leave Gaza City?
How we left Gaza City. One day, just like that, out of the blue, all night it was relentless bombardment. Like, the fire from the windows everywhere. Like, from how much there were bombardments ongoing, like it never went off. There was like fire. Like, you look here, there's a fire. You look there, there is a fire. You look there, there is a fire. That night we didn't sleep for a minute. Not us, not the kids, not the neighbors. No one slept. And by the morning, we found Israeli tanks just 20 meters away from our building. So we couldn't even look close from the window because they started shooting at our building. There is a very large tower, like about one street away from my building, like 20 meters exactly. Like, there's a street like in between them, right? And it's like a very high tower, high-rise tower, about 14 floors, right? And suddenly, Israeli snipers are on that tower. They're on top of that tower. And they start shooting at our building. They start shooting from like at our windows. And we were at our neighbor's place in the 4th floor, and I live in the 7th floor, right? So we realized that they're busy shooting, and like we were like right there under the walls and in the kitchen, and we weren't able to move around in the home or anything. We weren't able to do anything. And then they started telling us to get out of the buildings.
They, you mean the Israeli soldiers?
Yeah, they started saying, get out of the buildings, get out of the buildings. Like, just like that, just the way we are. I took whatever I could take, and I just grabbed my kids quickly, and we went down to the car, and we got out of the building with the other two families that were with us, like that we were staying together. They're our friends and other families who were in the building as well. And suddenly, now we're not going to the south. We're just trying to get to somewhere out of the building, right? So it's still in Gaza City, because now going to the south was not, we weren't able to go to the south by cars anymore. You had to go on foot. And I was against that idea. Like I wasn't able of yet processing the fact that I would actually let my kids cross south on foot because of the reality of the situation. I'll tell you about it in a while. But then that time we got into our cars, and then my husband, he called a friend of his, and he told him, you can come to another home that this person is sheltering at. It was in Sabra neighborhood. Of course, Sabra was heavily bombarded. Like, so anyway, we went there under sniper bullets. Like I have a video that I just opened the camera and still speaking in the camera, saying that we're heading to, now we got out quickly and we're heading to Sabra, and then the bullets start hitting like around the car, like literally, like you're in the middle, they're shooting like around you like that. So it was like no time. I let all my kids like duck down to the ground. They were seated down there on the floor of the car. We went to Sabra, to this to our friend's home, and it was like a 2 apartments building, right? So there was the number, like there were the family and their extended family, right? So it was like the total number with us was about 40 women and kids, and about 20 men and boys together. So
40, 40, not 14, 40 women and children.
40. So they took the apartment on the first floor to be the one for the women and kids, and the apartment on the second floor for the men and the boys together. Like this is how we stood, and we stayed there in that place for about 2 days, like 2 nights. Okay, and on the third day we decided to evacuate. But like one of the things that happened there is that we were sleeping, me and the girls, in the sitting room, and a small part in the sitting room. Like there was no space for anyone. We were just too many, and there was a room inside at the end of the apartment, and because there are no lights at all, there's no electricity like in other places in Gaza. Like most homes don't have solar energy or anything, right? So there was no electricity at all, and suddenly we couldn't charge our phones. There's no lights, nothing. It was very dark there, and I was like, they told me, if you want some privacy, you can sleep in that room with the kids. And I was like, no, it's just too dark, and my kids are going to be afraid. The girls are going to be afraid. It's okay. We'll just take a small space in the sitting room with you guys. It's fine. So when my husband came downstairs, like they would come, they were all like, these are all the wives of those men, right? And brothers and sisters and so on. So he asked me one question, Ishfaq. He told me, Yumna, where do you sleep? And I said, I sleep here in the sitting room with the girls. And he was like, no, I need you to sleep inside, in that room inside. Because I sleep in that room, the same direction of that room upstairs. That way, if the rocket falls, we die all together. But this way, we're not going to be together. Like, and I was like, yeah, but I mean, it's too dark there. But you know, that reality, like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I mean, this was our most concern. Like anywhere we went, Ishbal, this was our most concern, that we would be together. And like, there was a lot of tank shelling in those 2 nights. Like you would literally feel that from how much the home or the apartment shakes with every rocket and every tank shell. You feel that it's inside, it's in your home. So you just like basically you can't rest at all. You're just all the time on the alert. Like people are like literally, you sleep like I used to sleep in my hijab. I used to sleep like ready to just run out, right? Like and our kids too. Like if I afforded to sleep with my shoes on, I would. Like because you're always on a state of alert that you might have to like run for your life.
So there were 60 of you in this building, 40 women and children and 20 men, and food, water, using the bathroom. I mean, how was that even worked out during that period of 2-3 days?
Well, there was like, of course, every apartment had its own bathroom and toilet and everything, but it definitely was tough. It was like really tough. Like, I mean, the boys and the men, they were responsible for the water. So they would go out and get the water and everything.
At
And
this
then,
point, they're getting water from wells and purifying it, or
no purifying it. We're not purifying anything. We're just using it the way it is. We're just lucky to have water at that point. There is no that option of purifying anything. Trying to like a group would be trying to get some like water for use, and another group would be searching for drinking water. And then the women are the ones baking, of course. And then there's no cooking gas, so you have to light a fire and start baking bread on that fire. Very primitive, very primitive ways of life that we went back to, like lighting fires and making bread like on your hands and washing on your hands. I mean, washing was total other struggle to actually, but you got to, because you don't have the privilege of having more than one clothes or a pair of clothes to change in, right? So you wash this, you wear that, this gets dirty, you wash it, you wear that.
And during this period, are you still working? Are you still reporting, or like? And so, how is that fitting into your life?
So when I went to Sabra, of course I wasn't able to, because like for these 3 days, when I was in Gaza City, I was reporting. I was doing my lives on my phone.
From your house?
From my home, yes. And I was doing stories on like my balcony. And I used to go like when I was able to, when they weren't very close to a Shifa, to a Quds hospital and a Shifa hospital, I used to go and report from a Shifa. And then I used to go and film around the areas. I did a lot of stories from Diaries of War. It was at that time when I was in Gaza City. So only the 3 days when I was in Sabra, I wasn't like, there was no even signal. I had no charger for my phone. Like I wasn't able to charge my phone because there was no electricity. Like everything else became like extremely difficult. And it was like I knew that I wanted to head back south. I wanted to go back south because I knew that from the nature of what was happening, that they're coming in really bad into Gaza City. And the right decision would be to go back to the south. But I had this problem where it's not about walking those 7 kilometers that you have to cross to get to the south. Okay, it was more ishfaq, the area where you have to cross on top of the bodies of civilians who were killed on Salah ad-Din Street, and they were left for weeks to decompose right there. And they weren't even like the army, the Israeli army didn't even allow the ambulances to reach to those areas to pick up the bodies of these civilians who were killed while they were crossing. Of course, I was very afraid also of the fact of actually crossing, because every single day, when they said that they opened the time for crossing from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., every single day there were civilians killed. So it was more of a game of luck, of luck. Are you going to be lucky enough to make it and to pass through? Or you might be detained, you might be shot, you might be just like killed by a tank shell or something. So it wasn't like, I wasn't able of like processing that feeling that I might actually be putting the lives of my children in danger. And it was my only option. Again, the days that I spent in a sabra, they were the scariest. They were the scariest. Like all the time, I heard the tank shells very close, very close. And all the time, I saw the fire from the window of the sitting room. All the time, I saw the bombardments were relentless. All the time, the entire time. I felt like at any moment, I'm going to find the Israeli soldiers right there at the door, either shooting at us or hitting the home or the door with a tank shell. And just like every day, you just wake up to inspect the amount of destruction, and it's huge just in that area where you are. So I felt that no, I mean it's not real. It's not okay to continue staying here. I spoke to the people that we were at their place. I told them, guys, this is getting worse than it is. We need to go south. I wanted people with me. I wanted someone to go out with me and to help me in that feeling with like of terror that I was and uncertainty that I was in. And they were like, no, it can't. I mean, why would they come here? Like, why would, like, people always have this rhetoric question where they like, of course they wouldn't come here. I mean, why would they come here? Not of course, but if they do come here, they will find that we're unarmed civilians and we're not affiliated to any group, and they'll just leave. But again, just a very short while after any person gives such a comment, they just see the amount of civilians and armed civilians that are being killed just like that, whether being affiliated or not. It's not about that. We haven't seen anyone that Israel has said, oh, we have detained these people because they have been affiliated with Hamas or Islamic Jihad or anything, and we're bringing them, or we're bringing them to justice, or we're taking them, we're detaining them or anything. No, it's just killing. It's just killing. And when you get to that point, there's nothing else that you can do except run for your life, try to save your life. So when I took that decision, it was because I felt that Sabra is not going to be a place where I can protect my kids, not even a bit.
Yumna, at what point did you and your family and your husband, I mean, we'll get back to how you moved to Khan Younis, and what happened there, but at what point did you start feeling and start talking about maybe you need to leave Gaza?
When when we started talking about how needing to leave Gaza City.
Yeah, no, no, not Gaza City, Gaza itself. Like you need to leave Gaza. You need to leave the entire strip. You need to move to Egypt or to Doha, or you need to get out of Gaza.
That was a very difficult decision, and it wasn't actually made by me. It was actually made by my dad. We, like,
And
I
is this
remember just
did this conversation with your dad start happening while you were at Sabra, or before that, or once you moved to Khan Younis? Like when did that conversation start?
so since the beginning of the war, since the very beginning of the war, and the first incident with my family, and the how they were under the bombardment, and what happened with me after that in Jabaliyah, and then the events that started unfolding very quickly from the beginning. My parents were, you need to leave, please leave. They understand that I am a journalist. They understand that this is my work, but they were very much concerned about my kids. Okay. And I told them that I can't leave. I can't leave now. This is my work. This is when I should be available. I can't just abandon like everything that's happening and leave. But like I even having to evacuate my kids out of the strip, that wasn't an option that I could take because the borders were closed. Rafah border was closed. And it's not easy to just like in Gaza, it's not easy for you to decide to leave or to travel, whether it's time of war or not the war, at any time. So especially at times of wars, with a complete siege imposed on Gaza, like from the starting of the war, there was no that option of evacuating my kids, for example, wasn't even available. It's not something that, oh, it was there and I didn't want. No, it would have been very much easier for me. Okay, but I didn't have that option. And when many of these incidents started happening, and difficulties and struggles, we like honestly, like there were a lot of people who we tried to contact in order to like, for example, evacuate my family, or even, tell us that there's any sort of possibility to evacuate them, right? For me as Yumna, yeah, I thought like if I could evacuate my family, it would have been so much easier, but that option wasn't there. And then I got to the point, Ishfaq, where I had lost all energy that I had. I'm not just talking about like physical energy. I lost all my physical, my emotional, my mental energy. I felt that I got to the point where I lost my passion. I lost my ability to give anything
And this was
anymore.
after you had moved back to Khan Younis the second time that you're talking about when you were in the state.
No.
Was it long before that?
No. This was after I moved to Rafah, even after Khan Younis. Well, I evacuated 5 times. So, so that was after I moved to Rafah in the 5th time of evacuation. And even days after I moved to Rafah. And I felt like, God, خلاص, I was like, we had this conversation. Yani, of course, the situation was getting even worse than it was before. If before there was no water, 80% no water, now it's 100%. If there was no flour was only like 50%. Now it's 90%. There's no flour. Like, yani, life was getting worse. The conditions were getting more and more complicated. The struggles were growing. And for you to and the sense of security and safety was disappearing. It wasn't there anymore, you know. And I felt that because there's nothing else like that I'm capable of doing. It's like I'm fighting at all fronts. You're trying to do your best in your work, in reporting. Reporting doesn't, for you as a person in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip, reporting at the war at this time, you're not just doing that because of your professional career or your professional work, or because you work with, like, at the end, if you actually get to the point where you tell your company or channel, oh, I can't do it anymore, I'm tired, I'm sick, I can't, they won't tell you, no, you go out there and do it, right? Because at the end, you're a human being and you have been through a lot. So you deserve to rest. You deserve to say, I'm tired, I can't. But the sense of responsibility that I have to keep on, I have to keep on going, I have to keep on fighting, I have to keep on amplifying those voices, showing these pictures, reporting about these difficulties and problems. That's just like the sense of duty, that you have inside you. This is what was honestly keeping me still going. But I got to the point at the end where I was like, the whole world hasn't moved. No one is moving. No one is doing anything. Like, we're speaking about fundamental necessities not being found. We're speaking about a genocide. We're speaking about thousands of children being killed. We're speaking about severe injuries and wounds and disabilities among children for the rest of their lives. And this is all not changing anything in the world around you, watching you.
So then you move to Khan Younis. What's that migration sort of like? And how long are you in Khan Younis, and how much longer until you get to Rafah? And then when it comes to the ceasefire, did you leave Gaza before the ceasefire was in place, or during the ceasefire, or just speak to that as well?
So after we spent 3 days in Sabra, the people that were with us, they decided that they're not going to evacuate yet. They're not ready for that. I called Wael Dahdouh.
Yes.
He was still at the bureau. And I told him, Wael, this is going to get really bad. And he's like, I know. The tanks are like at the beginning, like the bureau was at the end of the street. He told me the tanks are at the beginning of our street.
And by now, while a lot of his family had already been killed, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that happened like after his family was targeted. And I told him that, okay, so this means that you need to move out now. Let's go to the south together. And he was like, are you ready to go? I told him, yes, I'm ready to go. If you will go now, I will go out with you. He's like, okay, we have like 30 minutes and we leave. We hang up, and in 30 minutes, Ishfa, I had like some backpacks for my kids. And now all I'm thinking about is they're going to walk in the sun for 7 kilometers at least. What can they carry? And like, my children are not like, they're not like big old boys, right? They're just like, my eldest is 12, the boy Muhammad is 11, and then I have Serene, who's 8, and I have Juri, the Juju, the tiny one, 5 years old. So, and what am I going to be able to carry? What are they going to be able to carry? What's their dad going to be able to carry? We left everything, Ishfaq. All I got with me in those backpacks where I filled bottles of water like these. I filled 2 bottles like of these water, and I put 2 bottles in my bag and in their father's bag, and then I put 1 for each child in their bag, and I put 1 summer pajama in their bags for each one of them, like very light clothes, you know, like whatever I could put in that. I carried the bag. I was like, is it heavy? You know, I don't want it to be heavy. I don't want them to feel tired, because what happens then? They're just going to drop it, right? So I could carry whatever as light as I could. And I was just concerned about water because they needed to drink water. So we went out. We got to we got a car to take us to Jawar al-Kuwait, or the roundabout of Kuwait, okay, where a lot of massacres were happened like the past weeks. And from there we started walking from there. Started walking all the way. Of course, we met Wael there.
Yes.
I met Wael and the other team, like the other team, Hamdan, it was Mahir, it was Muhammad. They were the team with Wael, and we walked together. Honestly, like finding Wael and walking with him was like it calmed me more, right? I felt a little bit of calm. My kids were terrified. They were like, what if they identify you and they detain you? What if they take you? What if they shoot you? Right? And I was like, no, because I'm walking next to Wael, and then I'm sure nothing is gonna happen. Like, we're gonna be together. And we walked Ishfaq. We walked for a very long time. It was very tiring. It was a very exhausting journey. And the fact that there was an area that we had to cross, and that area was the area where those civilians were killed. Those civilians who were killed, Ishfaq, they were on a donkey cart. You know, they were on a donkey cart, and they were shelled by a tank shell. So there in that area, the only thing the Israeli army removed from that street where they were killed is the dead donkey, while the civilians were left on the ground. I was looking, and I told my kids, just look straight. No matter what happens, just look straight. It was a very dehumanizing moment, having to walk with your ID in one hand and raising your other hand, or holding a white flag in the other hand, and just walking like that. Extremely dehumanizing and humiliating. And the fact that you actually have to walk like that while other bodies of other human beings are around you, and the smell of the bodies, Ishfaq, while all the troops are meters away, okay, deployed behind there is a fence that they made, okay, and they are all deployed behind it and behind their tanks right there, and directing their guns on you as civilians. And then they would speak to you in the mic, and they would say if they want to get someone to come out. I saw like they called like a couple of civilians from those who were walking, come. They would let them completely undress, okay, to their underwears, and they would, like in front of everyone, they would call him, and they are meters away from them, and they are deployed behind that fence they created, and the sand beams they created, and their guns and everything. And they would start telling him, do this and do that. take off your clothes. What's your name? Show us your ID. It's like so humiliating. You can hear the worst stories, dehumanizing stories, just from that corridor. Just from that corridor, while you cross the corridor.
And how long did it take you to arrive in Khan Younis? And where did you go? Did you go back to your mother-in-law's apartment, or did you go somewhere else?
No, it took us like, we got there to the south of Wadi Gaza. That's the beginning of the central part. That's when Al Jazeera crew came to pick us up, and
they took us to, and my producer and everything, and they came to they took us to my family, to my mom-in-law's home in or apartment in Khan Younis. We stayed there for a couple of days, and then like for 2 days exactly, and then the family, the two families that were with us the first time, who were our neighbors, then they came. They moved back to Khan Younis with us, and they came back to the place. So yeah, of course, once I was in Khan Younis, I was back working through Nasser Hospital or Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Younis. When we went to Rafah, or why we went to Rafah after that, is because at that time, when we went back to Khan Younis, just a couple of days later, it was the ceasefire time.
Okay.
So it was ceasefire. I think it was 4 days, 5 days of ceasefire. And it was like a lot of work for me in these like 5 days. Like I went out from morning, I came back at night. It was like finally safe to move around, right? And you're just inspecting, like as a reporter, you just want to go and inspect everything. You want to do all the stories or the human stories that you want, right? I filmed at the beach the second day or the first day of the ceasefire. I felt like I wanted to go and see people going to the beach for the first time in over 2 months. And then I did like a lot of other stories that I was finally able to move around from place to another. And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work during the ceasefire. The first day the ceasefire ended, that first day, Israel had already in the ceasefire divided Gaza Strip, the entire strip, into blocks with numbers. And how strong and how intensive the bombardments came back after the ceasefire was unbelievable. It was already like first hour and a half of the ceasefire, like the end of the ceasefire, 12 people were killed. And by, I don't know, like it was still very early, like, and the numbers were just going on higher and higher and higher, and a lot of people being injured. It was like, what the hell is going on? Like the ceasefire just ended like a couple of hours ago, right? How can it be that bad? And then we discovered that, or we found out that Israel, after it had started dropping leaflets saying that it has divided the Gaza Strip into blocks. Now, those blocks that are going to be announced every day are the blocks to be evacuated from Khan Younis, and that the operation is now starting against Khan Younis. So quickly after the ceasefire, Israel started its operation or invasion, right? Land invasion against Khan Younis. So it was the eastern part of Khan Younis first, and then going into. Now the thing is, my the neighborhood where my mom-in-law's apartment was, it was not in the eastern part of Khan Younis. It was not there, but it was between Khan Younis and Rafah. Okay, it was like the area between Khan Younis and Rafah, and that area is a border area. Okay, so it was one of the first areas that were infiltrated by the Israeli tanks. So before, like once they started infiltrating from that area, you knew, like you would know that Khan Younis now is going to be separated from Rafah. Okay. So when we started seeing that the tanks are infiltrating through that area, we knew that now we're going to be completely like divided, and we were trying to find a place in Rafah. It took us a while to try to find a place in Rafah, but it was very difficult.
Okay, so when you say find a place, you're still in Khan Younis and you're thinking about where the place is going to be. Okay.
Yeah, it has to be in Rafah because now we need to evacuate Khan Younis.
Absolutely.
And like our blocks were then me and our cameraman Maher. Like Maher spent like 2 days in his car with his family because his home was in one of the blocks that was announced to evacuate, and he didn't have a place to evacuate to, and he was still searching for a place to evacuate to in Rafah. And then I was just like, we were like a little bit further than Maher. It came like the next day was our turn, so we didn't go out, like we didn't have a place to go out, and we didn't have our car with us because we evacuated on foot to the south. So there was no option for us. We stayed in our home until we were able to find a home in Rafah, and eventually all of us, like Al Jazeera staff, Al Jazeera English staff, we left there to that home together.
You left from Khan Younis to Rafah.
From Khan Younis to Rafah.
And in Rafah, where did you manage to stay, and how long were you in Rafah for before eventually evacuating?
Yeah, like that was like the last spot, Rafah. And we, like from Rafah, we worked from the Kuwaiti hospital. I usually worked in the field, so I wasn't doing lives anymore. I was like every day in the field, filming in the field, doing stories from the field. So I didn't have time to be doing lives and, you know, doing these stories or reports every day. And honestly, there were a lot of issues and there were a lot of topics that I wanted to report about. So it was just going out to the field, and it took us it was a while. I think we spent about 9 days in Rafah, 9 to 10 days in Rafah before we like evacuated from the Gaza Strip.
How did you manage to evacuate?
So in the stage where we got to Rafah, that was like the end spot. I was telling you earlier, I was starting to get like really emotionally and physically drained. I felt that I wasn't able to give like what I wanted to give anymore. I was feeling that I'm too tired, I'm too exhausted, I'm just too devastated inside that nothing is changing, that this is not ending, that I'm trying to do whatever I can, but I'm not even able to provide the least necessities for my children. And we got to the point where now food is a huge struggle. Okay, so my dad, weeks ago before that, he was like he constantly told me like to try to get out, and I constantly told him that, Dad, this is not an option. If you're inside Gaza, you can't come out. Like, you can come into Gaza. There were times that the border opened for people to come into Gaza, or even Gazans to return to Gaza, right? But it was not an option for people to evacuate Gaza. And it was just not possible. We weren't able to. And then we have dual nationalities. Like, I have an Egyptian passport, and my kids have an Egyptian passport as well. And there was Hala Travel Agency. It's an Egyptian company that opened the coordination for the travel of Egyptian nationals from the Gaza Strip. So you would pay the amount of $650 for every passport, and you would get your name to be registered for a list to come out. Now, that happened in like after the first week of December. That started after the first week of December, right? So then my husband's friend, when he knew about that, he actually registered our names in that list. He registered us for like the coordination of Hala. And then I found out that my husband isn't allowed to come out with us. He's not allowed because he's only a Palestinian. He's not allowed to travel with us through the Rafah border and like through that coordination and that list. So I told him to call off that coordination and that we're not traveling. It was completely like, it was a decision that was taken by me, by my kids, and like we were all like, no way, we're not going to leave you in this hell alone. It's either we stay here together, we die here together, or we survive together and we leave together. So we're not going to leave you here alone and just go. So we called off that registration. And my dad, he knew that this had happened, and he tried to convince me so many times that, well, at least for the kids, you're not doing this for Salah, your husband, you're both doing this for the kids. That's like, they've had it. You need to save their lives. And we were like, no way, and we're not going to do it. We had taken the decision. Soon after that, like just on like a day out of nowhere, my dad called me and he said, you have your list, your names are on a list that just came out now, and you should be traveling tomorrow morning.
Including
and I was
Salah.
like, what? Well, now that's the thing, is that Salahuddin was not on the list, right? And I was like, Dad, I'm not going to leave without Salah. We're not leaving without him. I'm not leaving him behind. He was like, his name is not on the list, but he is going to travel with you. Like, the name, he's a Palestinian, so his name is not on the list, but he's traveling with you. I have been promised. He told me, I have been promised, and I promise you, he is going to travel with you. And I was like, okay, what if he doesn't? He told me, I swear to God, I'm going to bring him out for you. Just go to the border, let him cross into the Egyptian side, and they will allow him to cross into Egypt with you. Like, I have taken care of it. And I wanted to believe my dad very much, because honestly, a big part inside me was like, I finally want to save my children. But I doubted that, right? Like, I doubted that that would actually happen. I mean, it's not easy. This is not an easy option for Palestinians to actually leave Gaza like that. It's almost impossible, Ishbaq. Yani, it's not an easy option for Palestinians to have, yani, in their life in general, not just at the time of the war. At the time of the war, it just gets almost impossible. But then we even like we spent the whole night just discussing that fact. Everyone around me telling me that even if he doesn't travel, you have a duty to save your children and you need to go. And we got to the point where Khalas Salah was like, you know what, I agreed with you the first time and I didn't register you guys, but this time you need to go, you need to take the kids and go. This is not for us, this is for them. And I knew that, yeah, if I did go with them without him, it would have been worse on us. We'd be just out with our bodies and everything else will stay in Gaza. Eventually, we decided that we're going to go to the border together. The next day in the morning, we left to the border, and I started having this feeling that everything is going to be okay. It was very strange, honestly. It was like the first time I had this feeling of calm since the beginning of the war, that khalas, it's going to be okay. I deep inside, I knew that God knew that I was completely drained. And I had this feeling that God won't let me down this time. I'm like, God has never let me down. I used to tell myself that all the time. God has never let me down. He's not going to let me down this time too. He's going to make this happen, and we're going to survive, all of us together. And we stayed until 8 p.m. in the border, like from 6 a.m. in the morning until 8 p.m. in the evening. And then at the end, we got our passports and we were able to leave the Rafah border into Egypt. So finally.
What has been, I mean, I'm guessing you're now in Cairo. Since then you've been moving to Cairo. That's where you're living with your dad, I'm assuming, as well.
I'm now, like, when I first came, I moved in with my dad, but now no.
Okay. And so now, since you've been out of Gaza, it's been about 3 months. I'm guessing you've been to Doha as well, because that's where Al Jazeera is. So just what has life been like, adjusting for you and your family? Not forgetting that you're still looking not too far away from where you are physically at Gaza, and we all are, and seeing what's still happening there. So I mean, one is just how are you adjusting to Cairo in itself, and your new life, but then also while this is still ongoing, and while there's a massive part of your future that's still uncertain. How has all of that been going?
Well, I thought it would be easier than it is in reality, Ishfaq. I mean, coming here to Cairo from Gaza after all we've been through, the first month was, I didn't even, like, I can't recall what happened the first month. I felt like I was completely unconscious. I didn't realize what was going on around me. I was just relieved that for once now I have my family around me and they will take care of my kids. So I don't have to be the only person, or to be the person that has to be in control of everything. So the trauma that this war has inflicted on us, whether me, whether my husband, whether my kids, it has been unfolding since we came. And that's why I'm telling you, the first month, I don't even recall how it passed. I didn't even feel that a month had passed. After it passed, I realized that, oh, it's been a month already. For so long in Gaza, like during all this time of the war, I didn't have the privilege to break down, to cry, to let out my emotions, no matter how difficult the situation was. I just kept it inside, I felt like I put a concrete sheet on my chest and I didn't let anything come out, because I didn't afford to let it come out and to let it defeat me or to let it weaken me. I had to be constantly strong. I had to be constantly powerful and ready to deal with the situation. And that completely changed when I came to Egypt, when I found that. Plus, I've seen my family. Like, for my family, of course, they didn't believe that we made it out. We made it out alive. We survived, right? So it was very difficult. I did not travel. I didn't go to Doha until now, actually. It was very difficult to process and it's been already it's 3 months, but yes, 3 months might seem like a long time, but if I really tell you how they passed, I haven't realized that 3 months have already passed. I'm starting now to gain my senses. I'm starting now to gain my sanity, to regain my sanity, to regain my senses, that to everything that has happened and was happening. And the fact that this genocide is still ongoing. I feel that for a long time since I came, it was our day, since it started until it ended, was on the news. It was on the news, okay? It was trying to communicate with people in Gaza. It was trying to find out what's happening here, what's happening there. I felt that I was completely disconnected from the place where I am geographically at, which is in Egypt, in Cairo. And I'm totally like my mind, my soul, my emotions, everything is left in Gaza.
How have your children?
And then my children are, I'm not gonna lie to you, they've been through a lot that has really, really reflected on their personalities, right? They're getting much better and they're coping with the reality that they're safer now, and they can eat and they can drink and they can practice the normal life like it was before the war. But they're constantly still thinking about what's happening in Gaza. I mean, my 11-year-old and my 12-year-old, they're constantly on the news. They're constantly trying to find out if their friends are safe or not, if their friends are still alive or not. The communications are still very bad in Gaza, and it's very hard to get hold of someone. So this is a constant struggle. Some people we know have been also able to evacuate, so this has brought some relief to us. But the nightmares, for example, this is an ongoing issue for all of us, like from our oldest to our youngest. It's something that's ongoing and just doesn't stop. It doesn't go away. Some of the also, let's say, physical problems that have occurred from that time or from that period of time, they're still ongoing. Like I'm talking about physical issues, health issues that some of us are suffering from. They still need treatment and they still need a lot of, work to improve.
You mentioned that your children try to keep in touch with and see what's happened to the people they know. Inevitably, you've lost people you've lost colleagues. How have you managed to process that? And just, can you walk us through how that makes you feel?
There are a lot of people that I knew that have been killed in this war. And a lot of people, others, that they were colleagues, as you mentioned, but some of them were very, very close friends, very good friends. Like Shfaq, when, for example, Samir, he died. I couldn't even, and I had reached to the point where I wasn't even able to cry about Samir, to cry about what happened to him, from how much you have been, you have been practicing to keep yourself strong and to keep your emotions deep inside. I have been doing that for so long that even when Samir was was a very close friend to me. He's a very good friend of mine, and he's really someone that I really respected, and I loved his company very much. He was my friend and my husband's friend, and my kids know Samir, and his family members were all in Belgium, and I just felt, yani, despite that he got killed in this cruel and brutal way, his family members didn't even get the chance to say goodbye to him. They didn't even get the chance to see him. He had seen them for the first time in that vacation, in that last summer, for the first time in 6 years. And we returned together to Gaza. And he was flying of happiness because he saw his family, he saw his wife and kids for the first time in 6 years. And then suddenly he's gone. And it's not just that he's killed. Samir was killed in a very brutal, inhumane way. For the Israeli army to know that Samir is injured and to leave him to bleed to death, that's just too inhumane. And then Hamza, who was targeted at his car with Mustafa, another very nice person, very beautiful human being, very kind, very funny. Yani, I like Hamza, I used to call him like, you're my little brother, because like I'm way older than him, and such a nice guy. Like sometimes I think about it, Ashfaq, and I'm like, so this means that if I go back to Gaza, I'm not gonna see them. Like I swear, I can't even realize that this is the truth. Like I feel that I'm still in disbelief that, yani, I'm not going to see Samir again in his office room. I'm not going to see Hamza again. We're not going to joke with each other again. So I know now that no matter what happens, when I go back to Al Jazeera now bureau in Gaza, okay, of course our bureau has been destroyed. So again, when we have another bureau and I go back there, it's never going to be the same, because this person is not there anymore. And it's not like he just left somewhere. No, he left forever. You're not going to see him. You're not going to hear about him anymore. And yeah, honestly, our neighbors, when you hear about neighbors being killed and friends who have been killed, the amount of pain that you just keep on, like, you get to the point, خلاص, when you're filled up with pain, that when you hear the news about someone who has just died, okay, you just say, Allah yarhamu, may he rest in peace. Because it has just happened over and over and over and over, and it's not stop. You're just getting hit and hit and hit, just like that, when خلاص, you can't take it anymore. That infliction on you as a person, it's just unchangeable. And that mark, it has marked inside you, that scar it has left inside you, خلاص, it's unchangeable. Unremovable. You can't remove it. You can't change it. You can't get rid of it anymore.
Yumna, you mentioned that you spoke about when you go back to Gaza and when you go back to the Al Jazeera bureau, even if it's another building. Do you think it's realistic, given what Israel is doing and how, this war is still ongoing? What if you never get the opportunity again to go to Gaza, or if you do, it's not rebuilt, or it's not rebuilt to the extent that many people and many Palestinians and many people in Gaza who've lost their homes it's a natural hope that it's, you will return to some sort of normalcy. but it may not happen. And have you thought about that? And how do you think what do you think will be the consequences of that?
Well, unfortunately, Gaza has become unlivable. So we tell ourselves, even if this war stops today, if this genocide ends tomorrow, there is no Gaza anymore. There are no schools, there are no hospitals, there are no homes, there are no streets. There's nothing functional or livable in Gaza. There's no infrastructure. There's nothing. There's no life. You have changed a place from a city to a deserted place. It has become a deserted place, but with a lot of destruction, with a lot of rubble, a lot of debris. It's going to take years, just years, to get rid of the rubble and debris in Gaza and the destruction that has been made. And it's going to take more years for all this that has been destroyed to be rebuilt. Where does that leave us? It leaves us with the reality that you as a person with a family, you can't take your family back to Gaza to live there. Okay? Because if you will be able to live in a tent or a rented home or a rented apartment or a small area where, okay, you can settle in, you can't do that with a family of children, right? A whole school year, a whole educational year has been, has completely been lost for the people of Gaza, for the children of Gaza, right? We had just started schools in September when everything happened. So now, or in August, sorry. So now this entire school year has been lost for them, a whole generation, right? School students and university students. But unfortunately, it's not only this school year, it's all these other school years coming, because there is no school still available in Gaza. There is no university still available in Gaza. They have all been completely destroyed. So for me now, and then again, as a Palestinian in Gaza, from Gaza, sorry, going to Egypt now. Everyone whoever is able to come out of Gaza is in Egypt now, right? But as a Palestinian, you are not granted even a residency, because the only residency you can be granted here is either a student residency or a businessman residency or a work residency also. So now, if you look at it, all these Palestinian families who have fled to Egypt, okay, if you don't have a residency, you can't obtain a visa to travel elsewhere, not even a tourist visa to travel elsewhere. You can't work because you don't have a residency. And of course, you've left everything behind. Most people, like normal people, have lost everything that they owned in Gaza and every penny they had. And now you're supposed to be either a businessman or a student to be able to obtain a residency in Egypt. Otherwise, you're just staying there with no means or no, let's say, no title, no certain title. Yes, there's no time limit for the residency now. Okay, like it's open, but it's not a residency. It's just a permission to continue living in the country.
Yumna, there's just a final question. It's actually it's a dual question. You speak about the fact that there's no Gaza to return to. All the schools have been destroyed. Almost all the hospitals, all the universities, most of the homes. I mean, is there, when you speak to Palestinians, when you speak to people from Gaza, and even when you were in Gaza, and when you now can communicate with people when you do who are still in Gaza, does it now seem like this was always some sort of clear intention, that the intention was to make Gaza uninhabitable, unlivable, so that eventually there'd be nowhere for people in Gaza to go, or that they would just want to leave as much as possible? That's the first part of the question. And then the second part is, what does accountability look like? And how do you think there'll ever be accountability for this? And what will be the consequences of not having accountability?
First of all, Palestinians, even those who have left Gaza, like my family itself, like my husband being an original Palestinian, they're afraid of the fact of ethnic cleansing. They're afraid of the fact of taking their lands from them, right? They're afraid of the reality of the 2023 Nakba, okay, of like to repeat the 1948 Nakba again. And we know that, like, we know as I say, we know that because I refer to myself as a Palestinian myself, having lived all this all these years in Gaza. But Palestinians believe that after all this that has happened, we've seen in the midst of all this happening, in the midst of this genocide, we have seen Israeli ads about lands and chalets and homes by the sea on the Gaza shore, on the Gaza coast, and in Gazan lands. So yes, they believe that Israel wants to take over the Gaza Strip. It wants to take more lands from the Palestinian occupied lands, and it wants to ethnic cleanse the Palestinian people. And that's why, despite everything that is going on, Ashfaq, you will find a large number of people in Gaza who will tell you that no, we will not leave our land, even if they do open the borders, even if they do tell us to come out, to flee from the war. They prefer to die inside Gaza and not leave their lands again. They don't want to be forcibly displaced into Sinai Desert or any other place. They prefer to die in Gaza other than being forcibly displaced anywhere else.
And on the accountability part, what do you think? Do you think there ever will be accountability, and what would that look like? And what's the consequences of not having accountability?
Now, for there to be accountability that is real justice accountability, there must be all these, or every person, everyone in the government who is complicit in this genocide, okay, in the Israeli government, who is complicit in this genocide against the civilians of the Gaza Strip, should be brought to justice. Israel, there should be sanctions imposed on Israel and on the governments that are complicit in this genocide as well. I mean, the genocide that is committed against Palestinians in Gaza is not just the relentless bombardment. It's this starvation, this famine that is man-made, that is on the Palestinians, that is imposed by Israel on the Palestinians of Gaza. It's the killing of, or the forcing of Palestinians to live under inhumane circumstances that at the end result in them dying because of the contagious diseases and the lack of water and the lack of electricity and the lack of homes and everything. All these systematic factors that are being implemented, okay, systematically and deliberately on the Palestinians in Gaza, they should be held accountable for every single act of them. It's not just about the bombardment and the tank shelling. It's not about just using the weapons of war. It's using these inhumane elements and factors to kill a population, to kill generations, the causing of the disability to a whole generation with disabilities because of the kind of weapons that are used against them. All these should be held, all these should be brought to justice, they should be held accountable for. And the international community should be able to do that. It should be able to stand and to say that Israel is to abide to international law and humanitarian international law, like it is imposed on other countries. Like other countries are being subjected to sanctions because of breaking the international law, there should be no double standards when it comes to Israel breaking that international law. You don't need anything. You don't need to be anything to stand against these systematic genocides that are being committed against the Palestinian people. You just need humanity. You just need respect to humanity, no matter the race, no matter the color, no matter the nationality.
Yumna, I think everyone should be held accountable, but I think no matter what they do and wherever they're from, but it's probably unrealistic. How does that make you feel? The reality is it's probably unrealistic that Israel is going to be held to account to the extent that you're saying, if at all. It's almost like a denial of what has actually happened to the people of Gaza to not make it accountable. What will be the lasting consequences of that?
The lasting consequences is that, first of all, when Israel started this war, it said that this is a war against Hamas, it's a war against terrorists, it's a war against it's defending the security and safety of Israel and the Israeli people. What it has done is that it has turned a whole generation, it has created a whole generation living just to get revenge of Israel for the atrocities it has committed against its people. That little boy who carried his little brother in his backpack, if he survives, he will only survive to get revenge of Israel. Because at the end, what has been committed against these generations and how the world has abandoned these generations and has been completely unjust and unfair to them against the atrocities that have been committed against them. They will stand up for themselves. They will continue. If Israel thinks that by what it is doing, it is going to break the steadfastness and the resilience of the Palestinian people, it is completely mistaken. Because after 6 months, Israel was not able to succeed in returning one Israeli captive without an agreement and without a deal. True or not? And despite 6 months of ongoing genocide in the most brutal ways, the people until now, they tell you, we are there. We're going to die on our land. We're not leaving our lands. And they have a complete different power of faith that drives them to continue to keep on resisting, to keep on to stand with steadfastness and resilience. This is the nature of the Palestinian people. This has been ongoing. This has never started since October 7th. This has been ongoing for the past 75 years. And it's just going on from generation to another. Just ongoing from generation to another. So if Israel until now, after 75 years and 6 months, can't get to the point where it is, or it finally realizes that airstrikes and genocide and war is not going to be the answer, and it's not going to be the solution for peace with the Palestinian people, then it's going to be ongoing forever.
Yumna, thank you so much for your time. It's been a very long conversation, and thank you for being open. I'm sure this has not been an easy conversation to have by any sense of the imagination. So thank you for your time, and it's good to see you. And I hope you and your family and your husband, everything for the best in the future.
Thank you, Ishaq. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.